Welcome to the Deeper Thinking podcast. Before language rises, the day enters through the body. A faint tension gathers behind the ribs, a subtle lift in breath, a sense that pace waits outside the door. Habit wakes early and reaches for you. It wants smoothness, readiness, proof. The familiar self hopes to meet expectation before expectation fully forms. Yet beneath that reflex lies a quieter instinct, not passive, but rooted. Begin in truth, not speed. That instinct is not luxury. It is the first act of dignity. You breathe once without rushing. Shoulders ease by a fraction, not as softness, but as stance. The world will arrive soon with its urgent grammar, offering worth through velocity, identity through display. But presence is claimed before engagement. Attention here is not mood. It is a decision about authorship of your inner life. Simone Weil called attention a form of generosity. Iris Murdoch saw it as the clearing of vision so reality can be seen justly. Hannah Arendt warned that pace can imitate obedience if left unquestioned. To begin slowly is not aesthetic. It is refusal to surrender inner governance before the day knows your name. Outside, movement hums. Notifications, calendars, unspoken expectations form an invisible hallway of pace. You feel the tug to join it so you do not fall behind. Falling behind whom and to what end? Hurry seduces by promising safety through participation in urgency. But urgency without orientation is not presence. It is drift wearing armor. To pause is not to step away from the world. It is to step into the day without forfeiting yourself to its earliest pull. Your breath lowers one more notch, not as ceremony, but as calibration. You do not withdraw from responsibility. You simply refuse to outsource rhythm. Even here, before tasks and voices and interactions, pressure whispers. You do not answer that whisper with defiance nor submission. You answer it by not moving too fast to notice the choice. Emotional accuracy begins here, in the soft moment where habit could take over and you choose awareness instead. There will be mornings when you forget, when reflex runs ahead and tone sharpens before presence wakes. This does not mark failure, it marks practice. Return becomes the real discipline. To come back to yourself without criticism is interpretive discipline as lived tenderness. Repair is not exception, it is method. Each small return teaches the nervous system that haste cannot decide the shape of you without permission. Beginning is not triumph, it is orientation. You do not need control, you need awareness shaped into choice. Authority here is inner timing held with care. Presence is not delay. It is sovereignty measured in breath. There are 3 small skills that shape this practice. Emotional accuracy is the quiet act of naming what rises in the body before the mind rushes to explain it. A feeling is noticed, not judged, and given its true shape instead of its reflex story. Interpretive discipline is the pause that separates signal from habit. It is sensing what is real in the moment rather than obeying old urgency and choosing words or silence that stay loyal to truth, not speed. Return is the gentle of coming back when you drift. No blame, no drama, just a soft re-entry into presence again and again until steadiness becomes your natural rhythm instead of something borrowed from effort. The morning meets you quickly, light touches the room, and before thought fully arrives, the pull begins. The mind tilts forward as if urgency were already waiting. Habit tries to take the lead. Fingers hover without thinking. The practiced self leans toward movement as if readiness were proof of worth. Yet you stay still long enough to feel the impulse rather than obey it. One breath lowers into the body, shoulders release by a shade. This is not softness as retreat. It is the first boundary of the day. You keep your timing before the world offers you its own. The urge arrives again. Be quick, be clear, be already formed. But hurry is not integrity. Speed is not sincerity. You sit at the edge of movement and choose not to begin from reflex. Clarity comes not from accelerating, but from refusing to abandon yourself for velocity. You move only when you have already met yourself, not to avoid responsibility, but to meet it without shrinking or sharpening. A message arrives, early and expectant. You feel the instinct to respond instantly, to signal competence through pace. Instead, you pause. The breath stays low. You read without rushing to shape reaction. This moment is not idleness, it is discipline. Identity here is not performance, it is presence practiced in micro gestures. You decide the rhythm rather than inherit it. The reply, when it comes, carries steadiness instead of urgency. not slower than life requires, just not faster than truth allows. Habit presses again as the morning expands. Tasks rise like tall grass, expectations hum. Somewhere inside, a familiar urgency searches for permission to accelerate. You notice. You do not scold the impulse, you simply choose alignment over momentum. Emotional accuracy begins in these small refusals to leave yourself. Interpretive discipline lives here too, in the quiet sorting between genuine need and inherited panic. Some mornings, you will forget and move too quickly. You will scroll before breathing, accept instruction before feeling your own stance, or let pace stand in for presence. When that happens, you return. No drama, no judgment. Return is the method, not the correction. You come back to ground one breath at a time, remembering that life is not waiting for you to perform, only to arrive. You belong in the day, not because you are quick, but because you are here. Movement can wait one breath longer than habit. Integrity often begins that small. Authority here is choosing rhythm before reaction. There is a moment in conversation when truth rises through sensation before it reaches speech. A question lands or a tone carries heat and the body reacts faster than thought. Breath lifts, jaw tightens, the mind reaches for readiness as if pace could protect you. Instinct wants to answer quickly, to stay polished and sure. You have been taught that fluency equals intelligence, that fast means capable. Yet the first truth is not verbal, it arrives in the body. To notice before reacting is not hesitation, it is respect for what is real. You feel the pull to speak, so no one mistakes your quiet for uncertainty. Instead of obeying that urgency, you let sensation finish arriving. A slower breath drops into the ribs, shoulders soften by a shade. You stay with yourself long enough to sense whether the impulse is clarity or fear trying to appear like certainty. This pause is not passive. It is interpretive discipline. It protects emotional accuracy from reflex. You do not hide, you simply do not betray yourself for speed. The room waits, someone shifts, silence thins, pressure tries to dress itself as expectation. You do not fill the space to prove presence. You hold it so presence has time to land. Then your voice comes, not sharpened, not shaky, but grounded. You do not speak to win the moment. You speak to stay aligned within it. You choose language that reflects the truth you felt, not the pace the room suggested. Authority here is not loud, it is steady. At times, impatience will flicker across another face. They may equate your calm with uncertainty. Let them. Their timing does not decide your clarity. When you answer, the cadence carries intention, not hurry. You do not tighten. You do not fade. You respond from the ground of your own attention. Authority here is arriving at your answer, not performing one. There will be moments you move too fast. You will hear your voice jump ahead of understanding or watch yourself defend before you feel. That noticing is the doorway. You breathe once, return to yourself, and continue without apology. Return is not a fix. It is the practice itself. You are not shaping perfection. You are shaping presence. To hold a moment before speaking is not withdrawal from dialogue. It is participation without self-abandonment. You show that truth does not require urgency to stand. You trust that meaning matures in breath, not voltage. You do not chase certainty. You let sincerity arrive. You answer not from reflex or fear, but from the quiet, unhurried center that remains yours, even when the world reaches for haste. Attention slips quietly, a stray comment, a hurried footstep, a memory with teeth, and the mind leans forward before consent is given. The body reacts first. Breath climbs, muscles tighten by habit, the pulse lifts towards someone else's rhythm. You feel yourself beginning to match an energy that is not yours. Distraction does not always shout. Sometimes it arrives disguised as care, as readiness, as the subtle urge to prove you are attuned. But attunement is not obedience, and presence is not performance. You return before pace becomes posture. The breath settles lower. The spine unhooks from urgency. You soften the jaw you did not know had clenched. You do not withdraw. You do not rush to correct. You simply return. Return is the practice, not the apology. Emotional accuracy begins in this small noticing. What rose in you belongs to the moment, and what rose in you belongs to old reflex. Interpretive discipline happens not in thought, but in sensation first. You are learning to feel with precision before you move. Not as caution, but as clarity. A person nearby moves fast. Their tension brushes your calm. The instinct is to synchronize, to show responsiveness by becoming quicker, sharper, smaller, louder. You pause instead. You let their momentum pass without absorbing it. You do not stiffen to stay intact. You stay steady without hardening. This is not refusal. It is self-respect, quiet enough, not to need audience. Your presence continues in the room, but remains rooted in your own timing. You hear them clearly without losing the sound of yourself. There will be times you are pulled anyway. You will mirror a tone before you notice, answer too fast, lean forward into someone else's urgency as if it were invitation. Then comes the recognition, soft and without blame. You breathe again, shoulders loosen. You reclaim your center without apology. Return is not dramatic. It is ordinary as exhale and just as essential. To stay with yourself is not to stand apart from others. It is what lets you meet them without dissolving. Boundaries here do not sharpen, they hold. You remain open, but not porous to every demand. You stay near yourself so you can stay near them without confusion. Attunement becomes agency instead of absorption. Presence is not a fixed achievement. It is a rhythm you practice. Distraction will arrive, pace will tempt, urgency will pull. Your work is not to resist life, but to remain within it without losing the quiet thread of who you are. The strongest steadiness is not rigid, it returns, again and again and again. You meet the day not in grand turning points, but in the small collisions where habit used to win without effort. A notification vibrates on the desk. A voice from another room calls your name with a tone that suggests urgency, though urgency has not yet been proven. The body prepares before the mind arrives. Breath rises, jaw holds, posture leans forward as if readiness were protection. This is where practice lives. Not in stillness untouched by life, but in the moment you notice the pull toward pace and choose to feel before responding. A parent stands at the curb, a small hand in theirs. Traffic idles, then surges. Horns press forward as if impatience were authority. The child leans to step and the world seems to demand matching pace. You feel it, the pull to hurry, to cross before breath, to prove efficiency even here. Instead you wait one heartbeat longer. You kneel to meet the child's eyes, the engines grumble. Someone gestures sharply from a window. You stay still. The light shifts. You cross only when your feet are steady and the small hand is calm in yours. You did not win anything. You did not fall behind anything. But you arrived whole, and the child learned without being told that speed is not what keeps us safe. Presence does. You pause long enough to sense the difference between demand and expectation, between genuine need and the assumption that you must move quickly to be worthy. You lower the breath. Hands stay resting. Your voice does not rush to answer the call, nor sharpen to defend space. You let your timing be chosen, not inherited. Tenderness here is not softness that yields. It is steadiness that refuses to abandon itself for appearance. You are not slow. You are deliberate. You are not resisting the moment. You are meeting it without letting someone else's tempo choose the shape of you. Then comes a second test. Someone enters the room with clipped energy. Their tone has edges, not cruel, but sharp from their own hurry. In another time, you might have matched them, quicker speech, tighter nerves, a shared script of speed mistaken for competence. Instead, you stay steady. You listen fully before deciding how to respond. When you speak, your voice does not shrink to keep peace. It does not tighten to claim ground. It stays even, breathing room into the air. The boundary is real without armor. You hold presence without needing power over the moment. Each small act of unhurried presence cools the collective atmosphere, teaching a culture shaped by speed that dignity does not require haste. You will not meet every instance cleanly. There will be times you answer faster than truth, when tone rises a little to protect dignity, when reaction steps ahead of intention by reflex. These are not failures, they are signals. As soon as you notice, you return. You soften the shoulders, you choose breath over pace, you realign without apology. Return is not a correction, it is the practice itself. You are not here to perform steadiness, you are here to inhabit it even when it flickers. To live this way does not place you outside the world, it places you inside it with a different center. Authority does not come from control. It comes from not losing yourself when others lose their calm. You stay steady without hardening, and in doing so, you change the air by a degree only presence can measure. Each moment you choose clarity over speed, reality over reaction, you build quiet strength in the nervous system. Authority here is inner timing held with care, not borrowed urgency or fast certainty. You do not need the room to slow before you find your pace. You carry it, and the room learns from you. Emotions arrive quickly, often faster than thought can name them. A message lands heavier than expected, or a face shifts in front of you, and the body speaks first. A flick of heat in the chest, a narrowing behind the eyes, breath that rises as if bracing for impact. Instinct rushes forward with its old strategies: defend, fix, apologize, retreat. But emotion is not instruction, it is information. You feel it fully without letting it command you. Precision begins when you allow sensation without surrendering to the story reflex tries to write. You pause long enough to sort signal from habit. Emotional accuracy is not perfection. It is honesty without rush. The breath lowers, shoulder blades soften. You name what you feel without sharpening it into certainty or dressing it as threat. Is this disappointment or fear of misunderstanding? Is this hurt or a memory disguised as the present? Interpretive discipline lives in this quiet distinction. You are not suppressing emotion, you are understanding it. You let the feeling exist without letting it speak as verdict. A reply forms in your mind, fast and protective. You do not send it yet. You let the thought pass through the nervous system like a wave that rises, crests and recedes. When your response arrives, it is grounded, not performative. You do not rush to clean the moment or correct perception. You stay steady without hardening. You remain open without dissolving into apology or force. This is not withdrawal. It is maturity. A gentle refusal to let reflex speak on your behalf. Sometimes you will brace for judgment that never came. You will assume rejection where there was only someone else's tiredness. You will feel a flare of anger that softens into vulnerability the moment you breathe. When this happens, return becomes the method. You come back to yourself without self-criticism. You adjust without shame. You do not lecture your emotions. You accompany them until they clarify. Return is strength, not repair. To feel deeply is not to collapse into feeling. It is to stand inside sensation without losing yourself. You do not ask others to regulate what belongs to you. You do not silence emotion to appear composed. You listen, sort, and choose. The world often rewards those who react quickly and loudly. You practice something steadier. You let understanding arrive before response. You choose presence over impulse. You move from truth, not tension. Authority here is the ability to stay with feeling long enough to answer from clarity rather than reflex. In charged rooms, certainty gathers like heat. Voices move quickly, pace rises, and urgency leans forward as if speed were proof. You feel it first in the body, breath climbing, posture tilting, attention narrowing toward reaction. Reflex whispers, match them, move fast, stay seen by staying sharp. Yet you stay in your own rhythm long enough to feel rather than inherit. You lower your breath. You do not rush to belong. Softness here is not retreat. It is steadiness that refuses to be drafted into urgency. A clipped tone arrives, or someone interrupts with polished force. The room expects pace as competence and quickness as clarity. You do not hurry. You hold your spine without hardening. Your voice, when it comes, does not mimic tempo. It carries weight because it is chosen, not lunged toward. You stay steady without sharpness. Emotional accuracy becomes quiet influence. You are not trying to outpace anyone. You are demonstrating that presence does not need velocity to matter. Pressure returns in second waves. A question is thrown with edge, or silence stretches and someone fills it too quickly. You feel the old urge to tighten, to prove readiness through reaction. Instead, you return to the breath you chose. Return is not recovery, it is method. You listen fully before speaking. When you respond, you do so without rush, without armor, without apology. Interpretive discipline guides you. You choose alignment over speed. There will be moments when urgency catches you and your words leap ahead. As soon as you notice, you soften. Shoulders drop, breath sinks. You return, not as self-correction, but as confidence. A practiced steadiness is not the absence of tremor. It is the skill of coming back without drama. You do not lecture yourself for slipping. You accompany yourself back to balance. Over time, your presence shapes the space. Someone exhales because you did not hurry. The pace settles by a degree. Each unhurried answer cools the temperature of the room. Influence here is not force, but climate. You do not demand change, you create the conditions for it. What holds is not control, but groundedness. The room may lift, press, accelerate. You remain. You do not move faster than truth. You do not shrink to avoid pressure. You hold center, and in doing so, you teach the room a quieter way to breathe. There are moments when a room speeds up and expects you to follow. Voices layer, certainty gathers, and someone speaks over you as if pace were proof. The body rises by instinct. Breath lifts, throat narrows, a quiet urge to match intensity so you do not disappear. But instinct does not own you. You lower your breath, you stay in your timing, you hold presence without stiffening. Softness here is not retreat, it is self-possession in motion. Then the interruption comes again. Your sentence is stepped on, a gesture of dominance disguised as momentum. Old habit stirs, push harder, speak faster, or shrink to avoid tension. Instead, you stay steady without sharpness. You meet the moment without leaving yourself. Your voice remains level. This is not performance, it is discipline shaped by practice. You do not mirror urgency to prove belonging. You do not yield to avoid friction. You remain in contact without collapsing into pace that is not yours. You stay open without becoming porous to pressure. When someone else tightens, you do not turn to stone. You stay steady. When they soften, you stay steady. Steadiness, not force, becomes your posture. At times you will slip. You might defend too soon or jump to respond as if speed could preserve dignity. You might momentarily shrink to keep peace. The moment you notice, you return. Breath lowers, shoulders settle. You accompany yourself back to center without blame. Return is not correction. It is method. Practice is not flawless execution. It is loyalty to presence through repetition. Staying with yourself does not mean winning. It means not abandoning ground you never needed to surrender. Conflict does not demand escalation. Silence does not demand disappearance. You stand inside tension with clarity instead of armor. Emotional accuracy lets you feel without flinching. Interpretive discipline keeps you from mistaking pressure for truth. The room may not recognize what happens, but it feels it. A pace cools, a voice recalibrates, a conversation becomes less about dominance and more about meaning. Uncertainty often enters through others, not thought. A proposal lands in a meeting or a message arrives with expectation tucked beneath polite phrasing. Eyes shift. The air tightens by a thread. You feel the body attempt to answer before you've arrived at the truth. Breath lifts, timing shortens, reflex reaches for safety through quickness. Yet rushing would only trade sincerity for performance. You stay with the sensation instead of converting it into certainty. You do not hurry, you do not vanish, you remain. The room waits. Pace tries to pull you forward, subtle but real. You do not treat silence as failure, you treat it as space for clarity to gather. This is not hesitation, it is interpretive discipline. You are deciding who chooses your words, fear of being misjudged or fidelity to what is forming. Emotional accuracy takes time. You let that time exist even when others expect fluency. Breath lowers, posture stays open. You hold still without hardening. Someone offers an answer quickly, confident in tempo if not in truth. They fill the space with certainty shaped by speed. You do not feel threatened. You do not scramble to match pace. You listen. You let the moment breathe through you rather than drag you. When you speak, it is without hurry. You do not need brightness to prove presence. You choose clarity over immediacy. Your words arrive with weight instead of rush. At times, doubt will brush your edges. A part of you will wonder if waiting makes you seem unprepared or unclear. You breathe through that tremor. Return is the practice. You choose alignment over appearances. You let your timing be self-chosen rather than crowd-shaped. The room does not chill you. You cool it. Each breath that refuses panic teaches your nervous system that truth is not fragile when given quiet. Eventually your answer forms. It may be a question instead of a conclusion. It may be a provisional thought rather than a polished stance. It arrives honest, not hurried. You speak from steadiness, not certainty. You offer what is real rather than what is immediate. Some will understand, some will not. It changes nothing. You are learning to stand inside the unknown without losing yourself. Authority here is the willingness to remain present while meaning ripens, trusting that clarity earned slowly carries farther than confidence delivered fast. Completion in this practice is not a finish line, it is a rhythm. Some days you move through conversations with breath steady and attention clear. Other days you are pulled by old reflex, answering too fast or tightening before you notice. Neither day defines you. What defines you is the moment you feel yourself slip and you choose to return. You are not chasing perfection. You are learning to stay awake inside your own life, not ruled by pace or approval, but guided by presence. Evening arrives and you remember the day in small flashes. The moment you paused before answering a question that carried quiet pressure. The breath you took instead of defending. The time you stayed steady without sharpness when someone moved with impatience. You also recall where reflex spoke first, where you matched tempo before feeling your own. Yet you do not gather these as failures. You see them as signals. Every return builds trust in your capacity to choose yourself again. Return is the spine of this ethic. Sometimes your steadiness will be misunderstood. Someone may mistake calm for uncertainty or quiet for invisibility. You do not let their interpretation legislate who you are. You have learned that emotional accuracy matters more than display. You stay with the sensation long enough to understand it rather than react to it. You do not rush to correct others' perception. You do not collapse to avoid discomfort. You remain in contact without dissolving into pace that does not belong to you. Their timing is not your truth. On certain days, urgency will get through. You will feel yourself move too fast. You will feel tone sharpen or posture brace. You will speak before presence arrives. And then you will notice. You will soften, breathe, and return. Interpretive discipline is not a rigid stance. It is a gentle devotion to clarity. You are not correcting yourself. You are accompanying yourself back to ground. This companionship with your own attention is a form of loyalty nothing external can grant or remove. Over time, your steadiness alters the atmosphere around you. Someone relaxes because you did not hurry. Someone listens more fully because you did not compete for space. Each unhurried answer cools the temperature of the room. Influence here is not force, it is invitation. You do not convert others. You show another way to stand in a world that runs. Authority here is interior steadiness, not speed. Tomorrow will offer new pressures, new voices, new rhythms, asking to shape you. You will feel the pull, and you will meet it as you always do. One breath lower, one thought slower, one moment clearer than reflex alone would choose. You do not perform presence. You practice it. You do not chase control. You choose awareness. You return. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Deeper Thinking podcast. Each episode is built through rigorous ethical and research-based protocols. I use a digital narrator to help manage the workload. My goal is to invite fresh perspectives, thoughtful curiosity, and deeper understanding. Every episode takes considerable time and reflection to produce. Throughout the process, I'm guided by a strong moral core. If you enjoy my work, please consider letting me and others know. A review or rating on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or your preferred platform makes an enormous difference. Your support helps the podcast reach new listeners, fosters meaningful discussion, and keeps this project alive. Until next time.